Join me as I dive into the challenge of waiting for the best relationships of your life to unfold. Can patience really lead to the most meaningful connections, or are you rushing into relationships? In today's fast paced world, it is easy to get caught up in the idea that we need to constantly be on the move, achieving more, and relationships often become another checkbox, something that we feel pressured to accomplish quickly. We think that we should be married by a certain age, have kids or not, buy a house, the car, etc., etc. But when it comes to relationships, rushing into them can actually do more harm than good, as you may know. And do not get me wrong, there's the other end of the spectrum. We can be stuck waiting for the perfect relationship because we think that the grass may be greener on the other side. Balance and patience is the key. By slowing down and waiting for the right connections, not rushed and idealized versions of yourself or others, can set us up for fulfillment and authentic relationships. Hi, everyone. I'm Karina Aybar-Jacobs, and welcome to our Compassionate Weekly Accountability Livestream. If you are new here, nice to meet you. And if you are a regular, thanks for your time also. Tonight, you will notice that your comments are not showing on screen. And that is because, in the spirit of transparency, I had to pre record this live stream for all of you before I left on vacation. Yay! However, I will be live in the comments answering any questions or comments that you may have. Just simply say hello. I would love to see you. All right, let's get back to our topic. The idea of waiting for the right relationships can seem daunting, especially when it feels like everyone around us is coupled up and living their best lives, especially social media. That can make it seem like we're the only ones still searching for that special someone. But the truth is, relationships are a journey. It's not a destination. And by taking the time to focus on ourselves and what we want, we can set ourselves up for a lifetime of love and fulfillment and not constant disappointment. Because a lot of my clients and members experience this. And that is why I brought it up. Came up a lot this week. It is also important to remember that relationships are not a one size fits all, and what works for one person may not work for another. So that is why it is so important to take time to understand what we want first and what we need in relationships before we can find a connection or while we're in that journey. Because rushing into relationships can lead to most problems, from settling for someone who isn't right for you to missing out on the opportunity to develop as individuals. So when we take time to focus on ourselves, on our own growth, we become more confident and self assured, even more attractive to others. And I want to pause because I feel myself rushing a bit. Let me know in the comments if this resonates with you. Do you rush into relationships, maybe overcompensating and adopting this pick me attitude, or perhaps anxiously attached, or maybe you're fearful avoidant in relationships? You start strong, but then the moment that it becomes too intimate, especially emotionally, then you start to withdraw. So let me know if that resonates with you. I would love to hear from you in the comments. I want to say that societal pressure to rush into relationships can be overwhelming. We are often told that being single is a temporary state and that we need to find someone to complete us. However, nobody can complete you. People can only complement you. But what if being single is exactly what we need right now? Maybe that's what you need right now. What if this is the perfect time to focus on yourself, to travel, if you can, to learn new skills and to develop as an individual. And I cannot emphasize this enough. And I say this because, especially in our bi-weekly call within our Self-Worth Hub membership, this came up a lot. Navigating relationships, lots of betrayals, and the concept of emotional sobriety. We know of sobriety when it comes to alcohol and substances. However, have you engaged in emotional sobriety? And we'll get a little bit more into that. But it's, in simple terms, is this period of time where you learn more about yourself. You get to know yourself, your patterns, your triggers, potential trauma, wounds that may be influencing the way that you behave in relationships. It's a time to learn your interests, to set goals, make them visually available. Why? Why would that be important? Well, when you think about it, if you don't have a strong foundation, and I love the quote, if you don't stand up for something, you can fall for anything. The same applies to relationships. If you do not know your values, what you stand for, then you are going to just go along with whatever that person says for the sake of being in relationship with another. But what happens then? That leads to major resentment because you realize, whoa, I am just living this person's life. I am living their goals, their interests. But what about me? So we often forget about our own needs and values sometimes, especially if you grew up other centered. You all know that my specialty is parentification and complex trauma. And as a psychotherapist that consistently deals with these dynamics as a recovering parentified daughter and as a professional, many of my clients who grew up other centered, meaning that their needs were not the priority. They were focused on other people. They may be people pleasing. They may be highly independent, but they fall into codependency, not just in intimate relationships, but even within familial relationships and friendships, because the way that they learned that they were valuable, unfortunately, or lovable is by being of service to others. But in the process, because there's nothing wrong, I highly encourage you to be of service to other people. We need to move away from pathological individualism in this society. We need to be of service to others, but with caution. We have to make sure that in the process of meeting someone, in the process of being in relationship with another, we're not giving up a part of ourselves. And that is why I highly encourage my clients and my members to have visual reminders of their goals prior to meeting the person that they are dating. Why? Because this person comes, and I bet you that 3 months ago or 6 months before they started love bombing you and vice versa, you knew you were on a journey. So you were more in tune with yourself. But now all of a sudden, a new person comes in and they become the center of your world. And that is unhealthy. I don't think I need to tell you that. I think you know. So imagine the consequences of rushing into relationships can be severe. We may end up with someone who isn't right for us, or we may compromise on our values and needs. This can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, which can then make it difficult to overcome. And as a highly sensitive person, very sympathetic, empathetic person, it may take you a very long time to recover, right? Let me know in the comments if this resonates. Does it take a long time for you to recover after a relationship? If you feel comfortable, of course, share it in the comments. I do want to emphasize this, that that doesn't mean that you are weak and that you need to get it together. That just means that you are a highly sensitive person, a highly caring person, and empathetic. Therefore, you place a lot of value in a relationship. You're not just going around disregarding people's emotions or faking it. You are genuinely connecting with someone. That takes a lot of effort and time. That is why it makes sense that it may take you a longer time to recover. That doesn't mean you're weak. Just want to emphasize that because I'm sure your inner critic must be like, oh, come, I haven't gotten over this person. Or why do I think of this person? I don't want to be with them, but I'm still thinking about them. Why are they holding real estate within my mind? So that's that's natural. That is normal. Especially if you come across something that triggers a trauma wound, an emotional flashback. It doesn't matter how much work you've done. I'm not immune to that. It can make us reminisce about what happened, and it may lead to that sense of shame and regret. So think about it. Going back to the root causes, when we are young, it is easy to get caught up in the romance of it all. We meet someone, and it's like the whole world has come alive. And that is a beautiful feeling. But as we get older, we start to realize that relationships are about more than just romance. They're about building a life with someone through the ups and downs, at least committed relationships. So, emotional maturity is one of the key reasons why waiting for the right relationship leads to better outcomes. When we are emotionally mature and ready, I'm not saying you're immature, let me clarify that. But when we have that clarity, we are able to communicate effectively, to manage conflict, and to be our authentic selves without putting up masks. This is essential for building a strong and healthy relationship. Another reason why waiting for the right relationship is important is compatibility. When we are compatible with someone, we share similar values, interests, and some goals. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to have the same goals and interests, but the same values. I would say that's non negotiable. You want to make sure that you hold the same values, otherwise, you will be disappointed in the long run. Let me know in the comments what else you want to add to this list. Okay? Why? Because this makes it easier to build a life together and to navigate the challenges that come our way. Another aspect is personal growth that is very important when it comes to waiting for the right relationship. Why? Because when we take time to focus on ourselves, to become more confident in what we stand for, what we want, to prove to ourselves, like, I did that, setting goals and then looking back and saying, I did that independent from someone, that builds authentic confidence. You feel more self assured and more fulfilled. So, this makes us even more attractive to others and sets us up for a lifetime of happiness. I know it sounds cliche, but at least it sets you up for more inner peace. And research has shown that couples who take time to get to know each other before committing to a relationship are more likely to have a successful and fulfilling partnership. And this makes sense because getting to know someone takes time and effort. I want to share with you a story. This happens very frequently with some of my clients, friends. I recall a friend that waited for years to find her soulmate, as she called it. And she focused on her career, she traveled, and she developed herself as a person. And when she finally met her partner, it was like Her whole universe came alive. I remember the spark. I even told her. So they were meant to be together, and their relationship is a beautiful example of what happens when we wait for the right person. She herself has been a parentified daughter, still is, but setting boundaries. And it's so beautiful to hear her speak. And actually, another example that came up in our last group call, where one of our members shared wholeheartedly how she's in love with this person. And she doesn't have any shame in saying that she didn't think that she would say that, because she had a history of disappointments. And it was just, it filled my heart. Everyone was celebrating within the membership, because think about it. We are witnessing someone that had a history of trauma and finally decided to take time for herself, get to know herself, still is within our community, and then share that she's having a healthy relationship. The same thing that happened with my friends. Isn't that beautiful? So I share this to give you hope. Okay. We tend to think of relationships with timelines and based on societal pressures to be coupled up by a certain age. Says who, right? You can get married at 24 and then be divorced 2 years later, 5 years later, or when you are in your 40s or 50s. There's no guarantee. So, why do you put so much pressure on yourself, right? That's not fair. Also, studies have shown that people who are more selective in their relationships are more likely to be satisfied with their partner. And this makes sense, as when we are selective, we are more likely to find someone who truly meets our needs and vice versa. It's all about compromising, getting to know each other, and having that eagerness to make the other person happy and respected. So, something that I also witness a lot, unfortunately, is some folks that rushed into relationships and ended up feeling unhappy, unfulfilled, betrayed. And what do I ask? These are in personal relationships, within my membership, and with clients. What do they share? They often tell me that they wish that they had taken more time to get to know themselves and their partner before committing to a relationship, or even giving up on dating or starting to date. And I'm not saying that you should just take a break forever, no, but get to know yourself. And even if you are dating now, make sure that you make it a non negotiable to honor your interests, your values, your goals, so that this person doesn't consume your time and then you regret it. And then they will regret it too, because let's face it, it feels good to be the center of the universe for that person and vice versa, but that gets old and that's not healthy. That leads to codependency, right? And some people may argue that waiting for the right relationships means missing out on valuable experiences and connections. But I believe that the benefits of waiting far outweigh the cost. If you take time to focus on yourself and what you want, you can set yourself up for just inner peace and happiness, right? Something that comes up is other people may say that fear of being alone is a reason to rush into relationships. But I believe that being alone can be a beautiful opportunity for growth and self discovery. So if you take time to focus on yourself, then you can develop a deeper understanding of who you are and what you want. Okay. Now, let me know in the comments what you think of this. I know that it can be more complex than this in this day and age. Many of my clients, they say, my goodness, I can't believe that if I want a relationship, then they think that I'm too much, or, oh, okay, this person is, that's too much. So you have to play it cool. And what I would say to that is evidently they're not the right fit. Is it going to take you longer to find the right person? Absolutely. But do you want to rush into something with someone that their values are not in alignment with yours? Oh, I'm here exploring. Exploring what? Do you know what you want? Do you want a committed relationship? Then say it unapologetically. On your dating profile, put looking for long term commitment and your values and see what happens. It's almost like picture this, right? Myself as a therapist, just to give you an example that was helpful to me in this process. I could say I'm a psychotherapist. So I just do general mental health. So everyone will come to me, but in the process, I will find people that are not necessarily the right fit. That happens often, and that's okay. However, if I say I specialize in helping you heal from parentification and complex trauma, because I believe that it is possible to be happy, to achieve inner peace, set boundaries without guilt after growing up in dysfunctional families. I tell you, my clients, that's it. They're a perfect fit because they resonate with that. You may be resonating with this also. That is the difference. When you put yourself out there, you put your values out there, you are eliminating by default of disclosing what you want, what you stand for. You actually earn more respect from people because you're more self assured. You're not settling for less. That doesn't mean you are too much. That just means you have values, you have standards. And those standards you are willing to give to the other person. So you expect the same. Don't settle for less, but don't rush either. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments. I want to just recap what we have discussed tonight. And that is that waiting for the best relationships of our lives is not always easy, but it's worth it. It's important to take time to focus on ourselves, to develop as individuals, and to get to know others. And that way, we can set ourselves up for inner peace, fulfilling relationships. And if you are currently single, I encourage you to take a deep breath and trust that the right relationship is on its way, if that is what you desire. Meanwhile, focus on yourself, your passions, and your goals. And when the time is right, you will know it. Okay? If you have had a similar experience, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you are looking for more relationship advice, connections, be sure to check out our Self Worth Hub membership. The doors close at the end of this month. This is August 2025. Okay. And make sure that you subscribe so that you do not miss any of our live streams on Sunday. I will see you in the next video. Please remember your resilience. Take care, everyone. See you in the comments.